Well, good morning. I trust everybody has doing well. I wanted to talk today a little bit about the team that is involved in a successful exit. This is a topic that I've never really addressed in detail, but it is one that I feel is very important to discuss now, just because of the fact that it really is a team sport when it comes to exit planning. Now, I'd like to start this discussion off with an example about the $10 million mistake. Now, a while back, I talked with a colleague who said that they had a client who had a business that was valued at about $40 million. And it was a very successful business, obviously. But when the time came for them to exit, they only got 30 million from it. Now, there were some signs that indicated that there were likely needs for optimization there that didn't happen. But the point I'm making is this. That was actually a private equity firm that offered 30 million. To me, that's at least a $10 million discount from what it probably could have been. I think that, if proper time and effort had been involved, that business probably could have been sold for 50, maybe even 60 million. So it's not even a $10 million mistake. It's a 30 or even $40 million mistake. And I think of another business that, lost close to $30 million in value because key people were not tied down. And when they found out that the owner was looking to sell, what happened was they decided to go elsewhere. So the point here is this is a difficult process, and it's one that you could lose tremendous amount of value in. And the reality is 75% of business owners begin to regret their exit within 12 months of making it. The reason why is because they didn't realize just how much of this was not a transaction. It's an entire lifestyle pivot. And that's why it's very important for us to take a look at the people involved, because what they're going to do is it's not going to be just about getting the business ready. It's going to be about getting you ready for what's going to be happening come post exit. So, as I said, it's not really a transaction. In fact, it's really a 3 to 5 year process. And really, what happens is there are three critical gaps here that need to be filled. They are operational readiness, financial positioning, and deal execution. Today, we're going to look specifically at the three individuals who are going to comprise the team that are going to fill those gaps and help make sure that you don't become the victim of a 10, possibly even $30 million mistake when it comes to selling your business. So let's take a moment and look at the exit landscape. There are four key exit killing mistakes that could be made. The first one is valuation disagreement. You are told, okay, your business is worth such an amount, but the reality is you expect it to be for a different amount. Well, with a disagreement like that, that's a bit of a problem, especially if you need a specific amount and the valuation is coming back as no, it's actually worth this. Of course, there's the emotional attachment. I mean, if you have spent 35 years building a business, it literally is going to feel like a child to you. And letting go is going to be very hard. There's also going to be operational baggage where there's undocumented processes, things that you do in your head that have never been written down. Well, if you're leaving and it's not documented or mapped out, this is not going to be transferable. And the result is you're going to have a valuation decrease because of the fact that you just don't have the plans there that are needed to keep this going. And then finally, founder dependency. The business cannot run without you. So here's a test that I want you to do if you're in this situation. And I'm going to label it the 90-day test. Can your business maintain performance for 90 days without you? Right beside me is my young son, and you probably can hear his noises. And the reason I wanted to illustrate that is because of the fact that That is just one small example of what might happen that would cause you to need to step away. You may need to step away for family reasons. You may need to, well, obviously, he just kicked the rattle off my desk. So I may need to step away and do something as simple as that. But the point is, can you step away for 90 days to handle your personal needs and your business is able to continue to perform well? If not, you don't have a business, you have a job. I remember working with somebody a while back who, he liked to take 1 week trips on vacation. And he would talk about how, it hadn't been a while, it'd been a while since he had a vacation. Well, it'd been only really a few months. And the result was when he came back, there was a ton of stuff that needed to be done, get caught up, both financially as well as administratively. That's not a business, that's a job. And this is where it's important we realize that, if you have something like that, you don't have a business, it's a job. If you want a business, you need to take some steps towards building it into a business. And this is the advantage of the team approach, is making it so that way you actually have a sellable, transferable entity at the end of the day. Now, a solo exit is going to fail because of the fact think of this almost as like surgery. If you were a surgeon, you're not going to operate on yourself. But if you need to have surgery, what you're probably going to do is you're going to bring in a team of specialists. You're going to have the anesthetist come in and give you anesthesia. You're going to be the general surgeon. You're going to also probably have other specialists who are going to be there. There are going to be nurses, especially ready to help with triage and an event something happens. In short, there's a team of sophisticated experts who is going to make that a success. Same thing with this. So really, the synergy with these 3 roles we're going to talk about today is what is going to help make sure that your exit is a substantial success. So, team number 1, in that case, it would be me, the fractional COO who's using SEPA terminology, is this value accelerator. Now, what I'm going to be looking at is 7 key operational pillars to make sure that your business is in good working order. They are data and analytics. Do we have the business metrics to identify what is not working, knowing how we're doing compared to previous quarters or years? Budget development and controls. I mean, we need to have an entity that has substantial financial discipline, not only in the point of making sure we have controls in place for spending as well as, appropriations, but also more importantly, do we know what we need to make and do we know what we're spending in a year? Do we have that figured out? Strategic planning. We need to be able to create a successful roadmap, not only to get maximum valuation, but, let's face it, life is not going to end after sale. In fact, in some ways, life is just getting started. So figuring out what do we want this business to become 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That's where strategic planning is going to come in. Process, policy, and procedure development. In other words, we need to have detailed institutional memory so that way anyone, anywhere in the company can look and figure out what needs to be done, what their role is, and who needs to do it. Operations optimization. Here's the reality with most businesses, which the business owner is looking to exit. The reality is they're successful. They have figured things out. And, the reality is if they had not figured things out, they wouldn't be making money. Here's where operations optimization comes in. There's a good chance that, okay, what you have is working well for you, but is there a way that we can make it more efficient? Especially if we want to scale things. That's a very important thing for us to keep in mind. Multi-channel marketing. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we're able to really not only create a brand, but we're able to really do a good job when it comes to messaging, when it comes to the exit. Just because of the fact that you're going to help really develop solid trust with your clients. If you're saying, not only the owner is exiting, this is how we're moving forward. you can expect us to continue to deliver. So making sure you're able to get ahead of things and tell the right story is key. And then finally, tech analysis and improvement. I mean, I remember last decade, it was all about automation. From the cloud to automation and integrations. This decade, we're all about AI. So here's the thing: AI is not going to be your savior. AI will help you with maximizing output and eliminating grunt tasks, but it's not going to be able to do everything. Just like automation, the cloud, and integrations, it helped a lot. It helped us be more productive and be able to get better results. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be the answer for what we need for everything. And some companies, yeah, we may need to use more AI. Some we may need less. Some we may just need to simply optimize the tech stack. We may need to adjust plans. Basically, that is going to be a key area that I'll be looking at. Okay, so with the value acceleration process, what does it look like? Well, initially, we're going to be looking at assessing things thoroughly and getting some key wins. That'll be within the first few months. Then the bulk of what we're going to be doing is developing the infrastructure towards scaling. We may actually kind of begin the scaling once we have things optimized and ready. But the reality is, the scaling part is where a lot of what I will be doing is making sure the foundation is ready. And if we can scale, go ahead and do it. But really, let's get the foundation ready, get the basics set. Exit positioning and documentation, this is going to be something where as business owners getting ready to leave, one of the final things we're going to be doing is, getting all this stuff tidied up. And then, the sale process is going to happen. So really, that is what the value acceleration looks like. Now that we've taken a brief look at that as far as what the role of the value accelerator is, let's take a look at team member number 2, the wealth manager. Now, this person is going to be your personal financial architect. They're going to be the one there who is going to be helping you plan financially for what you want to do, but also more importantly, what you're going to do with your time. One thing we like to joke with in our meetings is the fact that why this is so important is because there are only so many times you can reorganize your sock drawer on a Monday morning. In other words, you have spent so much time and money in this business that once you exit it, you're going to need to have some significance as far as like where you're going to actually be spending your time. So they're going to help you out. But in addition, tax optimization is something they're going to need to be discussing, because with these sales, in addition, it's not like somebody's going to write a check to you for $30 million for the business. There's a good chance that while there might be a nice check at the beginning, there are also going to be these things called earnouts, where based on the performance of the business, you will get a certain amount every year. And it could be for 3 years, it could be for 2 years. It depends on how the deal is structured. And you're going to need to make sure that you have things figured out as far as how those earnouts are going to turn out. Also, making sure that you have your estate plan figured out. And really, on this issue, your wealth manager, you and your entire family should be sitting down just to make sure that you are all on the same page. Because deals like this can split families apart. You got to sit down, figure out who all is involved. And hey, if the kids don't want the business, guess what? If you have a really good sale, you will be able to pass on the proceeds to them, but only if you get your estate planning figured out. And then really the big question is, how much is enough? Because here's the reality. Let's say that you're making 300 grand a year from the business. Okay, that's great. Does that include your insurance? Health insurance, life insurance, everything? Does it include any utilities or, other write-offs that you were running through the business? because 300,000, if you take out all the other things that you were funneling through the business, it could be closer to 5 or 600,000. So, is this sale going to be enough, especially if you're exiting and you may be expecting to have 20, 30 more years left? So, understanding the numbers that you need is going to be key. So, in a nutshell, your wealth manager during this process is going to have 5 key areas in which they're going to be invaluable to you. They're going to be doing the pre-exit tax strategy, trying to figure out how are we going to, in the words of a friend of mine put it, make sure that we pay what you owe, but you're not generous with the IRS. You need the post-exit investment planning. They will be able to sit down and figure out, okay, what do we need to invest in? What do we need to structure so that way you can continue to maintain your quality of life into retirement? And then lifestyle design. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? I mean, obviously, if you want to move to, say, Colorado or Idaho, that's nice. But do you want to just live there for 30 years? Do you want to have any world traveling? Do you want to see the United States? Really, it's a matter of like, what is the lifestyle that you want to lead? And they're going to work you through that. Risk management is like, okay, with this major liquidity event, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're able to properly manage all of our risk. And then finally, family legacy plan. What are we going to do to protect this income? Are we going to put together a trust? Do we have any gifting strategies? What do we need to do in order to make sure we're creating generational wealth? So that is the second person. And now the third person in the team, and that is the M&A advisor, which my preference would be to go the investment banker route just because of the fact that these investment bankers are able to get really, really, really good deals. In fact, the investment banker I work with is Vestacor, and they have a very competitive bid process that's really, really good in helping drive up value. But now that I've introduced them, here's the thing. The M&A advisor, yes, you need to develop the relationship with them. And that's why, as a part of my process, I like to get them involved right at the beginning. However, they really aren't going to be getting involved operationally right away. And here's the reason, because they can't fix operational problems. I mean, the investment bankers and business brokers I work with, they are great people. They are incredibly knowledgeable. But they don't have the time or ability to get in and fix the problems that your business has. They really can't create value that doesn't exist, and they can't do my job. So while it's important you get the relationship developed right away, the reality is they can't get involved until I get done what needs to be done. Now, what are they going to be doing? Well, they have 5 key things they're going to be doing in this process. First of all, they're all about market positioning. They're trying to help you get the best buyers to select from. I said buyers, not just buyer. This isn't where like, okay, or you're looking for that one person who is going to give you the right amount of money for your business. No, most likely, and with Vestacor, they do a competitive bid process, which that is really going to help not only drive up the value, but also the way it's structured. They're going to help you see who is the best buyer. Value optimization. Well, just through this process, they're going to make sure that the value gets driven up to where it needs to be. Whereas, some businesses, if you're just looking for a buyer, well, it's going to be how much they want to pay, not necessarily, they're going to how much you want them to pay. Deal structuring. They're going to figure out what's the best deal, how do we work it out, and they'll be just getting everything ready from that vantage point. The buyer vetting process, which to give you a context, I've talked some with Vestacor, and they may send out things to 300 potential buyers. It may be even more than that. But these buyers are going to get vetted, and they're going to whittle away the ones who are not serious. And really, what they like to tell people is more, more, more. If you want to buy this business, you need to pay more. And so, really, they're going to handle from NDAs to vetting. They're going to make sure that, okay, you're getting somebody who's a serious buyer and not just somebody who, oh, that's nice. And then finally, the transaction management. From handling the NDA to having an entire process where they're working to get the business, getting the right M&A advisor is going to be crucial to making sure that the process is successful. So those are the parts. How do all three work together? Well, 3 to 5 years before the exit is where I come in. Your wealth manager, it ideally it's be somebody that you've worked with. Um, I mean, I know that some wealth managers, this might be beyond them. If you were looking for somebody who would be able to help you with this process, really the SEPA designation, which stands for Certified Exit Planning Advisor, is one that I would strongly recommend you look for somebody who has that. If you are looking for somebody who maybe does not have that, but the next best thing, it'll be somebody who has the Chartered Financial Consultant or CHFC designation. Um, but having a wealth manager ideally before I come in will be helpful, just because they're going to be having that relationship and building up your wealth and advising you. Having that before I come in would be equally helpful. But if it's something that needs to happen and it's clear that that's not their space, because let's face it, wealth managers have their own niches, and if they're operating in a space that does not work for them, they will probably let you know. But if they're working in a space that that's their bread and butter, great. But so I'm not trying to discourage you from keeping your current financial advisor. In fact, hey, if it's possible that if you had the conversation with them, they might say, yes, I have foreseen this coming, and I actually have done this type of study and really gone for certification. So that is really the big thing, is just making sure you get somebody in place who feels comfortable and knows what they need to do, because this is an area that, I mean, it's not necessarily rocket science, but there is going to be some complexity there. And then the M&A advisor, while they will be introduced at the beginning and they will be getting to know you and talk with you, their role is going to really begin to ramp up, towards, and ideally, if my schedule were to work, we would take 3 years to do this process. They would start really getting involved towards the end of year 2. And year 3 would be when they really get going. So, and then really, and really, I know the way that I work with other wealth managers and M&A advisors is we like to have regular touch points. So if we were going to be working with a client or multiple clients at one time, we're going to be calling and talking on a monthly basis, because we need to figure out, okay, how are things going, where are certain deals. So just having that coordination is going to help us make sure that we're on the same page, that there are no surprises. Okay, so how do you assemble your exit team? Well, first you need to start with figuring out, do you have the right wealth advisor? Again, I mean, if only leave if you feel like they are not up to the job. I'm not trying to, get you to leave your wealth manager unless you feel like it is important. I'm a firm believer in, just trying to be respectful of other professionals. The only time I would recommend departing is if it's clear that they're just not going to serve you. So make sure you have a good wealth advisor, and then, um, find the fractional COO or value accelerator. Could also be a fractional CFO, but basically, from my perspective, you would bring me in, and you know that's and just because of the partnerships that I have with not only with Vestacore, but also business brokers. That's where we would begin to be like, okay, well, since we've kind of fleshed this out, now we have the team all assembled. So really what it comes down to is in order to really successfully assemble your team, it's not rocket science. It's like you just go with who you have. And then, obviously I would love to come in and help out if necessary. But, you need to get a value accelerator to come in. And then really finally, most likely if people are have experience and expertise in this area, they will have connections with an M&A advisor who they'll be able to bring in. So here is the choice you have. You could take a dare for a solo exit and just hope for the best. And you might be able to get a decent deal from whatever the market offers. Or you could put together a team, and yes, there will be an expense involved. But if you put together the right team, I don't view necessarily the expenses as an expense, but really an investment, because it's going to be an investment to ensure that you get a maximum payout at the end. So really, just stop and think about it. You spent decades building your business. Don't spend 90 days trying to sell it. Instead, invest in a 3 to 5 year process of trying to orchestrate your exit so that way you are left with a business that has not only transferable value, does great things for your legacy, but also, more importantly, it's able to result in a liquidity event that gives you enough money to not only, fund your lifetime, your retirement, but also pass down generational wealth. Again, making a successful exit is teamwork. Please contact me today if you want to make sure that you have a successful exit and that you are able to create generational wealth for your family.